Be aware, I had no clue about education. I was a dropout. It's not my field. They have this button on the website to submit your pitch deck. Do you know how many they invested into?
Maybe 10, 20?
0.
My guest today has been built in one of the most iconic unicorns and then walked away to rebuild one of the oldest institutions in the world, the university. Christian Rebernik was CTO at N26 during their unicorn sprint. He worked as CTO at Parship and Xanox. In 2017, he launched Vivy, one of the first German digital health records. And in 2020, he then launched the Tomorrow University. Today, it's a state-recognized private university. For that, he roughly raised $15 million in multiple rounds.
The worst time to raise capital is when you need capital. Europe, because of its regulation, is lagging way behind. Term sheet, the details matter. Not at when you close the money, then you think only money matters. If you're successful, the terms matter.
Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. You have been a CTO for 3 times and multiple times founder. And I was just wondering during my research, how do you actually introduce yourself when you go to a dinner party? What do you say?
At a dinner party, I would say what I would do today. Yeah, and that very simply is the founder and CEO of Tomorrow University. And we are building a global university for impactful careers.
That's amazing. And I mean, EdTech is specifically a very, very interesting industry. And I saw in my research also that you dropped out of university from your first studies. And I think that is super interesting because now you decided to build your own university. Is that somehow connected?
I would have never imagined that. But in a nutshell, I think the story is that I was never really good in school. I always was.
Same.
I was very bored by the exams. Just learning for an exam was not a very good motivation for me. It was not relevant. Even during school time, I had really bad grades. But on the other hand side, I also actually published the school magazine with 1,000 editions. Which was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that one. Yeah, but just to have a good grade, and my parents never required me more or less to put effort into this. And university, there was more freedom, but it was even more about just doing that exam, you know. And I started a company also during actually the studies. Had then the choice going to a customer or doing the exam, and for me was always the choice going to the customer, and that I just found out I'm not learning what I need for life actually at university, and that's the reason why I just said, hey, this is great that I get a certificate afterwards, but it's not really helping me to build the skills. And I noticed this while I was working because it was not helping me. So that's the reason why I said, okay, I drop out there.
And when was that exactly? In what year?
It was 1996, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so quite a long time ago. And this was also a pattern of my life, more or less, that I then on the other hand side really had to learn. I learned a lot of things by myself. Yeah, but it's not very efficient. It's actually, to be honest, it's quite painful. If you have no guidance, you don't know who you can rely on data. You need to discover always the people you can actually eventually reach out for help. It's very hard to judge this. Yeah, so it was by far, I think, a very painful journey actually to learn things by myself. Yeah, so I was missing a lot of skills, which I would have expected also from school or from a university, which would have helped me. And so I felt my whole life this kind of frustration on the one hand side. I didn't have this kind of really guided journey support network for learning, and that's also one of the reasons why we started Tomorrow University, because I saw the same thing with my kids. And that was really like imagine you're growing up and then 30 years later, you see that your kids actually still have the same school experience. They still have the exams, learning things by heart. I mean, come on, the age of the internet is here, now the age of AI is here.
Yeah.
And we have the schools which are the same system as 30 years ago. And this is like crazy. And my time I spent always with my life when I worked on the products, there was always about leveraging technology and how things are changing, more customer centricity. And so many things have changed. And then school, no change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the moment when I said I want to do something actually in education.
That is so amazing, and actually, when you say all of that, I somehow see myself there as well, because I was also not the best in school and university, and then my parents also said, "Niclas, first go to a bank, do like your traineeship there, have like a normal job, and then later go to university." And that was actually also how I then did it. But during university, I don't know, a little bit bored. Like my grades were better than before in the school. But if I now look back at the time there, I see that we had so many like different topics, but a lot of that is so unrelevant still, like in building a business. Like if you are really self-employed, if you want to found like a business, most of the stuff that you learn there, I don't know if you actually need to use it. So that's also why I definitely believe education is something where at least Germany can become better.
Yeah.
And that's also why I'm so looking forward for this episode, because education is definitely a very, very important topic. Now, Christian, I saw in my research as well, we both worked actually at N26.
Yeah.
I think you worked there from 2015 to 2017, right? Okay.
Yeah, right.
I joined exactly after you. I was there from 2017 to 2020, and I can still remember it was chaotic, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But at my time, they already got the banking license, and for you, it was even more early stage. So I just wanted to ask you, like, if there is one thing that you still remember or how you would describe your time there, what would you say?
It was an amazing time overall. I joined when they raised their Series A round. Just after they raised the Series A round, Valentin and Max, the founders, who have been part of the Axel Springer plug-and-play accelerator actually before, I knew them quite well. But I knew them for actually a long time because I was also their mentor. So that's where I also actually saw and experienced how they pivoted actually from their initial idea, which was Papaya, which was actually a credit card for teenagers. And then how they pivoted to number 26 first, and later did the rebranding on N26. But for the Series A, we knew each other, and their CTO left. And that's where they've been looking for the right CTO to help them actually become a bank. And that's when I said, okay, or Max and Valentin both have been very convincing, to be honest, doing a great job.
Can you imagine that?
Convincing me to join. And I said, literally, hey, Christian, you need to help us to get a banking license and build the whole core banking system and improve the apps.
Wow.
And I didn't really have a financial experience beforehand, so I never did work at a bank from that perspective. But I had the opportunity to work within sports betting actually for a couple of times from Austria, which is, it's from a business very different, but from a technology perspective very similar, because you have also accounts, you have transactions, you have fraud, all these things, and now obviously the bank is more regulated, but just having this opportunity also to build a bank is not that you have that often. So I said myself that it's really interesting actually on the other hand side to do this. And I think just in hindsight, I mean, it was a very good move to move away from Wirecard to get your own banking license.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But it was a whole journey. It was really I think a very challenging journey, the whole thing, on so many sides, from leadership to building this whole core banking system, or thinking about what is a core banking system. And we built our own core banking system in a nutshell, Wow. How do you get to that? But then again, also pioneering on the user side, being really this mobile first bank, the bank customers really truly love. And I think there was a time of N26, which I wouldn't miss, because it was high intense, a lot of great decisions, which led also the foundation of N26 success.
And a lot of people there as well. Like, people often say N26 is still like a mafia, because so many people there found their own business. So that's amazing. And Christian, I was always wondering like about the leadership team at N26, because when I joined, everyone was basically from Vienna or Austria. And in our department, we always made jokes like, you can just become a leadership if you actually come to the top level. You have to come from Vienna, basically. And I saw you are also from Vienna.
Yes, I'm also original from Vienna.
Okay,
it's true.
But that was not one of the factors how they decided, right?
No, because also, as mentioned, I lived already for quite some time in Berlin, and I met them here. So there was no ties to actually Austria. It's actually a funny coincidence, to be honest. Yes.
Okay. And do you still have N26 as a bank account?
Yes, sure.
Okay, same. Because we still have the premium account, actually. That's super cool. All right. I would love to take you a little bit back now in history and would love to speak again about your journey so far. So how did you end up in Berlin, basically? What steps did you have in between? And I saw that also, but let's not go into such a detail, maybe just overlapping. That would be great.
Yeah, I think in my life I had the opportunity to work for a couple of unicorns. I mentioned before the sports betting company, Vivy, was one of actually Austria's most successful startups and also becoming a world market leader in that space. I moved from Austria eventually to Hamburg, where I was working for Parship, which also became a global leader now in matchmaking, where I was CTO, and eventually from Hamburg again to Berlin because Awin, which is Europe's largest affiliate network or performance marketing network, they've been looking for a CTO, and I joined them. The reason why I moved to Berlin, but on the other hand side, I must admit also I like the ecosystem in Berlin a lot because it's much more richer than other regions, especially at that time in Germany. And I think that innovation has a lot to do with the ecosystem, actually.
That's true. Yeah.
It's like the Silicon Valley has a lot of benefits because there is capital, there's people who understand risk, there are people who have experience, actually, where you can learn from. There's an open mindset of sharing. There is role models you can look up to. And in Berlin, there was a lot of these kind of elements, which make a very good starting point actually for starting a company. N26, by the way, had also the opportunity to either start in London or in Berlin. So both have been options actually on the table back then.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they decided for Berlin, but it was a very close call, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Good for me, because if they would have been in London, I would not have worked there. And now, probably you know that, so I live in Munich now. I'm just here now for this week. And I already feel like the vibe, like when you go through the city and you see so many young people and you hear how people speak during their walk about business model and AI. And I just built my agent, like I was just sitting in a coffee place there and had my breakfast, and they were speaking about what AI agents they build up. And if you go to Munich, it's not like that. So first of all, you just have like pretzels as breakfast, but the people don't have these business discussions. So I think this is the reason why many people are here, why so many startups are here, and I agree totally on that. So ecosystems should be a top priority. But if you look back now at the ecosystems and specifically education, since you operate now in that industry, like, would you say one ecosystem is best in education? Is it Berlin?
So there are a couple of EdTech startups also in Berlin, absolutely. I'm not sure if this is the hub for sure. So if you're looking at where is the most happening when it comes to education, it's definitely in the US. Okay. Europe, because of its regulation, is lagging way behind. Schools, but also universities are heavily regulated. But on the other hand side, a lot of education here is public funded. I think I worked also in the health space, and I always compare it to the health space. If there's a private large market, then there's also more innovation happening. And this is the reason why I think the US is also much more fast-paced, much more things are happening, and you will see also more and better educational models talking about AI and how to learn effectively coming often from the US. For us, it was also a discussion about where to start actually an education or EdTech company. It's not a bad space, and we have I think we had a lot of also, I would say, luck and support to make this possible. But I think there's more innovation and a better ecosystem in the US actually when it comes to education.
We actually might have some founders listening who are also building something in education. So I was just wondering, like, if you would now recommend them a location to start their business, would it be Germany, or would you say now at this point, no, we maybe made a mistake, go to the US first?
No, Germany is an option. It depends a little bit on what you're building. So if you would build a school, I would think twice if this is the right space because of the regulation. So also to be fair, when I started Tomorrow University, I also thought about building a school in the first place. But then I looked about on the regulatory requirements and what you need to do, and it was very limiting. That's the reason why we also started with higher education. But if you're just working on a typical, let's say, an education platform for B2B learning process, maybe this is a very good place. Or there are a couple of there's a startup which is supporting, for example, medicine students to do and solve their exams, and that's really great. And that's also, I think, a very good space is here in Germany.
I would now love to speak about the decision-making process, how you came to what you do right now? Because I understand your background, everything sounds great, makes sense, CTO, and then you started several businesses. But how did you land there to decide, okay, now I build like a university? And also, like, what person was the first one who got that information, and how did that person react? Like, because it's such a crazy industry. Like,
yeah. So it's an industry which I think is totally underserved, maybe in the first space. Yeah, if you're thinking about how many new universities do you know?
10.
10 in the last 10 years?
Okay, maybe more. I know
Really?
some more.
Yeah. So I don't know many universities are coming up.
You mean like, okay, I just know the Code University?
Yeah, which is 10 years old roughly.
Yeah. But, okay, you are now speaking about really just new universities.
New players, yeah.
Okay.
There's not that many new players coming up actually in Germany. And why I did what I did is, first was this observation that my kids have this still, they learn the same way as I was learning, which was for me the frustrating point.
Yeah.
And be aware, I had no clue about education. I was a dropout. It's not my field. Let's just be very clear about this, yeah. But also in my past experience, I had no clue about finances when I was starting N26, yeah, and as a CTO there, or I worked also and founded Vivy Digital Health Record, and I had no clue about the health space, yeah. So I think as a founder, you need to be very good in learning. Actually, it must be one of your core skills about being able to understand a deep dive into an industry. And that's also what I did at the beginning. I thought, okay, this sounds like a really great problem. I need to learn more and all about the industry, actually. Yeah. So the first month or months was just about talking to people, learning to people. And
so people, do you mean then your ICPs, so like people who would study something, or
the whole ecosystem? I would talk to students, I would talk to existing university leaders, I would talk to teachers, I would talk to investors, so everybody who is in this industry, to understand their perspective, depending on what they do, also different questions. And one of the persons actually who have also introduced me to my now co-founder was from N26, Markus Müller. He actually
Mafia. I said
he more or less, I talked to him and said about this problem, and if he knows anybody I should talk to. And then he actually recommended me to talk to Thomas Funke, which I actually knew from Austria, but I didn't have in mind, because I worked with him together actually at Vivy, but I didn't have him in mind actually because he was working in customer service there, that he is actually an education expert. But he in the last 15 years actually tried to change universities from within, and always was very frustrated because this was too hard. So this was one of the, and I talked to him, and we had a lot of intense conversations, but also a lot of passion about the problem. And this is something we actually share in common, is the problem and the opportunity. And out of this eventually slowly started to emerge what we actually might build. Because we talked to the students, then also what they need. We talked to employers about what they experience if they hire people from university. They told me they lack, for example, that people actually have the skills. They have the paper, that's great, but they don't have the skills, for example, to do a business model, And that was based on these conversations, slowly more or less the idea of Tomorrow University emerged. But it took a long time until it became Tomorrow University. We looked at different competitors and what was the state of art actually currently in the learning space. So it's really about understanding it. And when I was doing my research, part of this, I actually found an investor, Emerge Education. They had a really great study published about challenger universities. I was a little bit frustrated because that analysis was really top, was really better than my analysis. I had the feeling it was really very good written, well-written report, very insightful, and they had a blog post about this with a couple of editions. I read all of them, and I reached out to the partner who wrote that, Mario Brozovic. He was really very into it. He really talked to the whole industry. He interviewed them as well, and he had a lot of insights. And I was saying, hey, this is the person I want to have actually as an investor. And I was really passionate about them, getting them with their knowledge and their also vision as our partner, literally as in first investors. And this is also how we eventually then actually, they invested then also into us, as the first institutional investor in our pre-seed round, But how I found it was really because they showed off their expertise and their network, which was really convincing, and told me that's exactly the people I want to have on my side.
That's amazing. We will speak about your funding rounds also in a bit. Before we do that, I just would love for me and also the audience to understand better the business model behind Tomorrow University, and how it actually differentiates from your perspective from a normal university. I saw that like one big difference is how people should learn. And I think that was like the major point, right? But maybe you can give us like a quick summary on the big difference to a normal university.
Yeah. So the big difference is modern learning. Modern learning means it's fully personalized. And what I mean with this is that if you join Tomorrow University, we will ask you about why. We will ask you about your values. And you will spend a lot of time actually on defining very clearly which direction you actually want to go. And this is very important because this sets also your motivation. Yeah. So if you want to create a startup, if you want to transition into leadership role, if you are interested into the financial industry and changing that one and being an innovative player there, we have students, I don't know, from Ecuador who want to change the solar efficiency with AI. A lot of reasons, a lot of missions for our students, but every student knows what he wants. And then every learning you do, all the other challenges, you will actually apply what you learn on your own mission.
So they come to you and they already have like a challenge at this point and say, Christian, we want to join.
They will define the direction. They will define what we call also their mission.
Got it. Okay.
And then on this, and our job is more or less to make their mission our success. So we want to help them actually to achieve their goals here. And we will help them to build what is called, the challenge is called Build Your Dream Team. So they will define their own board. In the early days of the studies, these are people which are industry experts, friends, could be anybody, who will support them and hold them also accountable on their mission. They will see what competences are actually missing. What is important? What are the relevant competences? And then everything they learn, again, talking about business models, talking about AI, product development, etc., they will, it's challenge-based learning. So it's not you will learn not by heart, I don't know, how to build a product, but actually you will learn and you will actually build a product during that
cool.
period of time. And you do this in every challenge. So there is not a single course which is traditionally just a course. Everything is challenge-based learning and it's competence-centered. So it's on the relevant. We tell you also not just we don't care so much about grades. We tell you actually about competency growth. So what's your competency before and what is afterwards?
Now we are talking. I think sounds like the perfect university for me as well.
You're welcome. Please join. But that's really what we want to do is accelerate you. This is what I would have wished, during my time is not just giving learning by heart, but actually being able to apply it, but have the system. And this means, for example, the role of a teacher is not teaching, but it's actually more a mentor and a curator. The professors for us, they pick what is relevant for your journey, and then they help you through that challenge. But they don't need to have all the answers. So it's a very different model from a traditional university, actually, to this kind of modern learning. And then we have our own university operating system, as we call How You Learn, on the platform, which is developed, but it's also modern, which means we adopt the questions, for example, based on your competency level. Sometimes if you are already, because otherwise you're bored, if you're good at something already, my financial model. So if you get the basic questions, you are bored. But on the other hand side, if you don't know anything, then this could be too hard. So we adopt this based on the skill level. And in this way, we really try to make it for you. So we want to help you really develop the competences. And in this whole journey, we have a lot of experts. We have experts from Lovable, Amazon, Apple, Google, Lufthansa, Deutsche Bank, who are helping you actually to learn those skills. So we bring in also a lot of practitioners.
So that is also like how you do your differentiation, right? Like bringing in people who have a lot of practical experience.
It's half of our, more or less half is practical, half is academical.
Okay.
So we're bringing both worlds. We want to bring you in. For example, we have, there's a talk on Thursday from Uli Schmitz from Axel Springer. He is talking about the complexity of leadership. Really, I think a very great and very cool talk. But you learn from them directly, get access to them. You build relations. with those people, but also you build relations throughout the whole program with your peers, which is very important because with them together, eventually these are the people you will ask for help, or where you actually maybe hire them, or maybe, you start a company together. So we want to make it very social. And that's the second part. So competence and then making social, and that's combined with the mission drivenness. This is how we help you or every student actually, to be really successful in your career. And that's what Tomorrow University in a nutshell makes different, is we're providing really personalized modern learning with the latest technologies, but also with a community of industry experts, best of academics, and combine this with your personal mission, which is, I think, really crucial because that gives you meaning. Otherwise, you're just learning, but you don't know why, and without clarity on where to go. So that's Tomorrow University, and that's what we are really here for. And we are doing this online first because we want to allow and believe in this global community. We want to help you also build a global network. What we do additionally is we have a lot of in-person events. So we have every quarter, we have an immersion, this is called. This is where students meet from around the world.
Oh, that's nice.
Panel discussions, keynotes, really great ones. Our graduation is also in person, and they're happening in different cities. So last one was in Amsterdam. The next one is in Barcelona in September. Then we have one in Berlin also. Then one in London. So they are jumping the locations.
Are you also always going there?
Yeah, that's one of my highlights.
That's cool.
It's always my highlight. It's one of my highlights.
Yeah.
And then we have action hubs in different cities, which is also important in the different cities where we have a lot of students where they meet regularly. But the combination of this online and in person allows people who are actually working professionals to study while they're working. And this is something you don't need to have a break. And we really also proud ourselves that we want to support you, your career, whatever you're doing currently.
Yeah, it sounds like you are also building a community for the people, and the people then often connect probably and even start businesses with other people who study there. So, I mean, that should be the goal for every university, but it's not happening enough.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. Now, Christian, I saw that you have raised around $15 million across multiple rounds. We already spoke about your first funding round a little bit. Can you please tell us a little bit more about the different steps and the different rounds you did actually? And then we start again from the first round.
So it's 3 rounds: pre-seed, seed, and Series A round in a nutshell. Yeah? The pre-seed round was driven by angels majorly, but also there one institutional was Emerge Education, as mentioned before, which I was very excited about. Yeah, and the second round was seed round, only institutionals. And the last one as well, the Series A round. I think fundraising for me is always about relations. It's about people, and the earlier, the more it is about people. I think in both ways, because I'm also sitting on the other hand side, but it's like what I mentioned to you, I wanted to have Mario actually as our investors because I thought that he is a really great fit. We talked to him before fundraising actually. Yeah, so I reached out to him, said, hey, that's really great research, could we talk? And then we talked a couple of times actually. And just much later actually I said, hey, we want to make this real. Do you want to invest? And that was more or less for him also a much easier decision. And the other people who invested have been a lot of angels, like Verena Pauster, but also many others who, on the one hand side, I had some relation with. So fundraising makes it, it's as mentioned, it's about relations, I think. It's not so much about, especially in the early days, about reality. It's not about that the pitch I'm doing, yes, there should be a pitch and it should be sound and it should be interesting opportunity, obviously. So it should cover the basics. But on the other hand side, I haven't seen a single founder who actually was successful with the same version he had when he started the company in his mind. Yeah, so it's always a change. So that's the reason why I think that it's more about investing into the people. Yeah. And I'm very aware of this. So that's the reason why I also talk to angels who more or less believe into me. And have a relation with me. I think then they become actually helpful. And the other part, what was for me important about selecting angels was I wanted to have different types of angels to help us in all the different fields, actually, where we think they are actually really crucial to be successful. Yeah? And then you have also more or less advisors which can help you on your path. Yeah, that's the second part, which was for the first funding round, really important. One of the biggest challenges in this funding round, I think overall, in building Tomorrow University, it's I think it's special, and there may be a lot of other special industries, but you don't build a university as a VC case typically.
Yeah, that would have been my next
question.
So
doing that it's not easy, and it's and then from an investor perspective, what you don't understand, you don't invest into.
Yeah.
From a fundraising perspective, it's very hard as well, because it's a lot of just explaining what you're doing here, why you're doing this. It's not like that you say, that's very clear, that's like Uber for something, or it's like N26, this is a banking business, we understand this, but it's something which is not so much, it's new. Literally, we are actually the first university which actually was built in and became a state-recognized university in Europe. So it's something which is it's rare, and that makes it harder to raise capital than something which is everybody understands already.
But would you say that education in general is a little bit of a tricky industry that VCs do not choose that often? Or do you think it's more because of university in German that makes it even more specific now for you?
So I think for every sector there are specialized VCs. Yeah, you have Fintech VCs, you have healthtech VCs, you have you can name GovTech VCs, AI VCs, which are focusing, and you have generalists. Yeah, these are VC funds which are investing into all independent of the industry, and you have VCs which are investing into certain regions, for example, have this kind of focus. Yeah, or there are VCs which only invest into second-time founders. Yeah, so it really depends on the VCs, and also for EdTech, there's also EdTech VCs which are there. Yeah, and we talk especially for the second round. So the seed round for me was easier than way before. When I started my first company back then, you have no connections, no network. This is so much harder, and you rely so much on introductions from others to actually be able to raise capital. But that's also the way how to do it, I think. It's not going to pitch events, it's actually getting introductions from others in the first place. But from that perspective, the first round was I think, easier because it just had relations. The second round then, we needed to we said, okay, we want to have institutional investors. And that's where I opened it up and talked to generalists, investors who have been on the a little bit further away from it. It was a tough process because investors who are not EdTech, they don't understand it. And this is not even the problem, because you in the person as a founder, you have a good ability to convince people because you know the in and out, which is really good. But how investors make decisions is not that you convince one person, even if it's a partner, and then he decides yes. Yeah. But actually there's always an investment committee happening. So typically every fund has a couple of partners, and they meet together regularly, typically weekly or maybe bi-weekly or however, as partners, and they decide on their pipeline of startups and where to invest and where not. Yeah, and you are not part of this eventually, but actually this person you talk to is representing you. Yeah, so he talks, and he needs to be able and good equipped to convince all the others. Yeah, and if they're not specialized on education, and there's a lot complicated stuff, it's very hard for people to convince the others actually. Yeah? So this is, and especially if it's like a fast process. Yeah? So if it is, he knows you really well and you have a long relation, it might be different. But out of this, it was very hard to convince non-EdTech funds to actually join Tomorrow University, because it was something which you need to explain.
I heard that actually very often. So the last investor I spoke to in the podcast, he also said for startups, they should also ask to investors the question like, how can I best prepare you for your weekly call with the partner meeting? And I think this is like super important, and exactly what you were just saying. And maybe you also know that game where you are saying something to some person, and there are like 5 or 6 people in the row, and in the end the last person is saying something completely different than the first one. And of course it's not the same, but in the end it looks like that because everyone is using their own words, and it gets more complicated, more fuzzy, and in the end it's like a totally different outcome. It's
totally natural, because you have your logical build of the world in your mind. You have your experience. Every person has his own experience and analogies for this reason. Yeah, so. And then based on this, you phrase it also different. You express it different because it works and resonates with you. But with you, something different may resonate than with me. So this is where, for sure, the stories get changed. And it's very hard. And in an IC, you ask questions. So it's very hard to have those questions also well answered if you are representing a company which you don't know that well. Yeah? Obviously, the job is to know it well, but nonetheless, the more complex it is, the harder the job is for this person actually to represent you in the SC, for example. Yeah.
Christian, we also have a lot of people looking the podcast who are actively raising capital. And now you already said it's difficult when you maybe don't have your own network. So what would you say then to people who really don't have anyone in the network? Like, what would you recommend them?
It's really interesting. There are a lot of things I think which are important for fundraising. Let me start with how to actually find people who want to invest. Yeah, and again, this depends on the stage. But typically, what worked for me best always is that I look for the people I want to talk to. This Emerge, Mario from Emerge. Yeah.
You didn't know him before, right?
I
just
didn't know
saw
him
like what he published.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
I didn't know him before, and then I would look for who can introduce me to this person. What you can then do is just ask for an introduction. And LinkedIn is a great tool, I must admit now, because with this, you know how many connections you have to a person. And yes, if there's two hubs, it gets more complicated, but still is possible. Sometimes I even go to several people to ask for an introduction. Yeah. And if you get a request from, I don't know, one person saying, hey, Christian is amazing, you should talk to him, you may ignore it. The second person comes to you, hey, you need to talk to Christian, he's doing the startup. Then you say, maybe I should talk to him. But at least at the latest, the third person which tells you to talk to this person, you will talk to him. Yeah. There is no way around it. Yeah. And with this approach, you are able to get an introduction to every person you actually need and want. And then I think it's if you talk to people, they have already, and you get a recommendation, you have way better start than doing a cold outreach just to them, because why should they listen to you?
Yeah.
You know. So this gives you a much better setup at the beginning already.
I love that. That's amazing. I never thought about that strategy. Like, of course, asking people for introductions, but that you use like multiple people to then always get reintroduced is very clever.
Yeah. To the big funds, they get so much noise that this is important to get through. Again, Andreas and Horowitz, or for the big ones, this is something which is important. And it's really crazy how good we are all connected, actually. Via LinkedIn, you see this that pretty much to everybody. It's maybe one or maybe two, but it's very rarely three connection hubs. Yeah, so somebody. That's the reason why I think also I recommend every founder to set up LinkedIn. I actually had one founder which I invested in who didn't have LinkedIn. It was like super awkward.
What?
It was super awkward. Yeah, and he was really doing a great job actually in communicating and network and everything, but he has no LinkedIn
and
profile.
Why? Like, was there an explanation?
Just didn't set up. They didn't see a need at the beginning, you know. And this depends also from which industry you're coming. So you don't find doctors, for example, on LinkedIn, you know.
That's true.
There are a lot of professions which have no necessity for LinkedIn because it's not their business. Yeah. So for those people, again, just recommend it, because what we see is also investors are doing. The first thing is they don't check your CV because they don't have it. They will go to your LinkedIn profile. They want to research you and want to have your background. Yeah. So I think it's really important to set up LinkedIn and also start using it as a founder, especially. I mean, because it helps you to connect, find these connections, but it's also something then how you actually shape your picture to the outside world, because that's the first thing people will look at.
That's great. So we already have some first advice here.
Yeah.
Go to LinkedIn if you are not there. And then, of course, also adjust your deck. That's something you also said previously. And I would love to continue and speak about your Series A deck specifically now, because I saw there was like an article from TechCrunch and they analyzed your pitch deck, which is actually quite rare. You don't find so many pitch deck analysis all the time. I was just wondering, did you send the pitch deck to them, or how did they get that?
They asked for it. Yes, they asked for it, and we provided it to them because they wanted to talk about the story, about the fundraising. To be honest here, we also didn't give them all the slides. So and they complained about it in the article also, which was fair because we didn't want to disclose all KPIs. Yeah, but nonetheless, it was, and actually I thought about afterwards to share more, because I think it's this building companies public. I think it's something which, again, helps the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
We just need to give some context for the article here. So in TechCrunch, they wrote that the pitch deck is reading a little bit more like a manifesto than a pitch deck, and that a lot of slides were missing, like I think financials, business model.
Exactly, the financials we left out,
Yeah, so you didn't provide these slides actually then. Okay. Yeah. And how would you rate your pitch deck now if you look at it again from 1 to 10?
Very good question. 1 to 10. Things have shaped more clearly over time. Yeah, I think it was a good pitch deck overall. So maybe what founders struggle, or what we struggled also, is you have, at least in my mind, it's very hard to make things simple. Yeah, and making things simple is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important for every audience because they don't have all the cases in their mind because they don't understand it. And if you're thinking of, we have this business model, but we can also do this business model and this business model in the future, it's too complex. You need to, is this one thing actually working out for you? And I think what we could do better is actually exactly making this very crystal clear, which problems we are solving and how we are solving this, what is so unique about us. We did communicate this, but I think we could have done this much better and much stronger to build a stronger case. And it's not by providing more information, but by actually removing information and making this one point getting across even better. Yeah. So giving the example, what we do today is that we have, on the one side, serving students, but we also serve corporates. But do you need to talk about the corporates in the pitch deck, for example? And these are questions I think we need to answer. And I would always say, rather keep it as simple and clear as possible. Also, you will see every person solves multiple problems often, or multiple serves multiple customers. There is not just one ICP. Yeah, there's maybe a different customer. It gets also more complex if you have a marketplace, So the more you can actually reduce it, the better it is. Yeah, marketplace, for example. Yes, who is your first customer? Is it the consumer or is it the supplier? Yeah, all these questions. I think this is something we can do better.
I saw some of the slides. I think they looked quite good, actually.
Thank you.
But I agree. Like in general, it's always about simplifying as much as possible because, again, the same topic, investors need to understand it, and also they need to bring it back to the other investors.
Yeah.
And when you operate in an industry that is maybe a little bit more uncommon now compared to we just built another software, then of course you need to simplify this one even more.
The other thing is always what I also struggle with is the presentation version or is it a reading version? And this is something where you even have two decks, for example, because if you present something, it's very different and should have much more visual appearance so they can actually listen to the people than if you send a reading deck. Yeah,
I agree. What would you say was like the most important slide that you had in the deck for the Series A raise?
No, the most important slide is about the product. So problem solution, the solution for me is the most important one, but you need to have this kind of problem market fit. The market fit is that you actually are able to monetize your solution is what you need in a Series A deck. Yeah. So in a Series A deck, you would not only want to have a problem solution fit like before. Yeah. And before it was more that we can demonstrate that we actually can solve that problem really well. We are providing the modern pedagogy here. We can help people really learn effective. Yeah. But the second one, Series A, was for us actually being able to prove that we also are able to monetize this and have a clarity and have proof that we can do that. Yeah, and this is for us the most important part in that deck.
Now it's getting super interesting because I also have that question here. I saw that you are operating as a non-profit company, actually, or at least like the entity is very specific one. And I just want to understand how that works. Like, how can you raise venture money, go to also VC funds, but then have like an entity like this one? Like, I can imagine like, it's already difficult to raise money. So this makes the whole story here even more interesting how you then did it.
Also complexity. Yeah. At N26, you also maybe remember there have been two companies. Yeah. There was a tech company. This was a large company with all the staff in there. And then there was a regulated entity, N26 Bank, which was much smaller. Yeah. And this was they changed it now, I think, the regulation. So now you're looking at the whole thing. But that was, I think, a very good setup as a blueprint. Yeah, because there is regulation, and the regulation is very important. But also it's often slowing down innovation. And if it's one organization, you have the conversations of regulatory requirements on the whole organization level, but you want to keep them small. I think this worked really well at N26 as a model, and what we did at Tomorrow University is very similar from this perspective. Is that, hey, we want to have a regulated entity, And we want to have also the possibility to really innovate and be here at the forefront on what is possible. Yeah? And that's the reason why we also two entities. The one is the school, the Tomorrow University, and then we have a tech company, which is also the holding in this case. Yeah. For us, what we wanted to, we had another additional reason. We, on the one hand side, want to have real impact on the globe. That's the reason why for us venture capital is important. Yeah. But on the other hand side, we want to make very clear that we care about the education quality. And you wanted to have this, that this you cannot easily change. So that we cannot say, hey, we are compromising on our quality for the sake of profits. And this is the reason why we said, okay, we want to have actually a non-profit entity, which has also very clear statutes about their mission and purpose, so that actually we can, despite getting venture capital in, we can also, on the other hand side, ensure the quality of our education and build that up. And that's the reason why we actually have the two entities. Yeah? So it's one is this regulatory part, but also that we can ensure the quality of the education.
Okay, got it. That's clever. And also great again that you learned about that structure then probably at N26. So that's amazing. And was that like a structure you already had immediately from the beginning, or was that something you figured out like after maybe the first round of funding?
So the reality is we didn't know that we want to build a university in the beginning.
Okay.
It was never the initial plan. The initial plan, we thought about technology and how we can build a really great learning platform so that you really effectively learn in a modern way. That was about personalized learning, challenge-based learning, all these things. And my co-founder, he's really amazing because he has a lot of experience in what what works actually. And we looked and we spent a lot of time in learning science. There's so many great initiatives like Stanford 2025 back then, which was about how does the future of universities look like and need to look like, and everything evidence-based. And so we knew that there is so much knowledge about how learning actually works, and we just more or less took that and integrated this into a platform. Why? Because my co-founder told me, we have great teachers today, they are outstanding. But it's a system. And then you have a couple of teachers which are great, which typically really struggle to do this great job. But as soon as they leave, the next person does it again different. Yeah? So you have only, 10 to 20% great professors, but not every class. But education, if you're going to class, why should not every class be outstanding? Yeah, that's what you want to have. And this is where we said, okay, we build a platform to ensure actually every class is outstanding. Yeah? So we built that platform in the beginning to achieve that. And then we partnered with another university in Austria, the Vienna University of Business and Economics. And we created with them together a master degree in sustainability, entrepreneurship, and technology. And this master degree was a huge success. So it was really tremendous. We did run the whole degree, but they did provide the accreditation. So they did make the certification, they take care of the payments, and of the enrollment, and we did just run the whole course for a class for 1.5 years. And it was great for a time, but eventually, and coming in mind this was during the pandemic, eventually after pandemic, they also said, hey, this is a great program, but we need to get the students actually in person to our university so that they can verify their ID. I was saying, we're living now in 2023, can we certify them somehow? You know, a person from Australia will not come to Vienna just to verify his ID.
And it was, by the way, shortly after COVID, actually, right? Okay.
And then they said we had a lot of discussions around making this possible, and there've been a lot of other bureaucratic things which we said, hey, this is not how we can innovate if we have those basic problems. Yeah, and that's the reason why we said, okay, we need to get our own university license, and only then we actually decided, okay, now we need to think about, is this possible? And I had no clue about getting a university license, but I thought, why not?
What did your investors then say about that? Because it sounds like a big pivot from your initial idea to the next one. And I was just wondering, like, maybe you heard about that as well. Like Elon Musk, he also invested in OpenAI.
Yeah.
And initially they were like also non-profit. They just wanted to do research. And now he's handing in complaints because they are doing something completely different. So it's like a similar situation because you are now
we started with a tech company first, and then afterwards we founded the non-profit.
Okay.
So for us it's the other way around. And we said afterwards it's non-profit, and we started this company literally to get the university license and also be ensuring that that actually really works in that combination. But it was also not clear if you. It's a very good question and very intense discussion. Do you really want to go that route?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there is nobody there in Europe who has done that. Yeah, so it's a lot of effort. You need capital, a lot of capital, which is very important because, for example, we need to guarantee with the regulation, you need to guarantee that any student who starts can finish. So you need to have the financial resources and bachelor students study 3 years. So you need to be able to guarantee financially that you can finish your studies.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is just one of a lot of obligations you have as an accredited player in Germany. Yeah, so that means you need to have the financial, and it means, from a VC perspective, it's not very interesting to put money on the side. So this is also what I mentioned. I learned also with N26, for example, how to build these bridges, how to make this possible, how to actually build a bridge, what the interests of a VC are, and from a regulated world. And it's complex. It's not easy. But this is then also on the other hand side gives you a quite strong USP, because it's true that the entry barrier to regulated business is much higher. Yeah, but once you're in there, the benefit is also there is less competition, and you're solving problems worth solving, which I'm a big fan of. Actually, it's a big problem. It's something which is really worth solving, and if you think about your time, which is also limited, solving great problems is, I think, very interesting. Yeah. So from that perspective, we talked a lot with our shareholders also about, is this feasible? What can we do here? And what we need also in financial resources. And we did this then together with our seed round. Yeah. That also financed more or less the accreditation process. Yeah. It's a bet, more or less, that this works also, because again, you don't see many universities coming out.
Yeah, that's true. And Christian, what are now the next steps for the future when you think about tomorrow university? Like, do you think about another funding round? Will you go maybe with your entity in a different country? Like I saw you have students from over 60 countries, I think over 1,000 students and more. So what are your plans for the future?
So for us, what we're very excited about today is actually the accomplishments that we have. Students, they love studying with us. We love our alumni. They are really successful, from starting companies to becoming leaders at large tech companies to other industries. But they love the experience. They really connect with each other. We have seen that they're founding together. So this is where we are very happy about today's experience. We will improve this. There is a lot of things happening, what we're doing currently with AI, how we can improve the whole learning experience, how we can help them more effective, even connect. Yeah, we believe also this offline experience is really great, and we are doubling down on this kind of offline experiences, providing more opportunities to meet in more locations. Yeah, because also the Australian person, for example, all the immersions currently happening in Europe. Yeah, but it's not for everybody feasible to come to Europe. Yeah, so this is something we're working on. Yeah, so this is one thing we want to double down on. But for us, on the other hand side, it's really about we are now 5 years old. Convincing the first bachelor student to study with us was a challenge, I can tell you. But now we have the alumni, we have the results, so it's much easier. So for us, it's also now about building up and being better known, building up that people actually have heard of Tomorrow University already. So for us, it's really about making it more, making people more aware that this is actually a feasible option. Yeah. And also that online studying, many people think, then I learn by myself, And this is not Tomorrow University. Yeah, so we need to do a lot of education actually on the market, that this is actually a really great option for people to learn this way and what it actually means. Yeah, so this is where we will also in the future spend a lot of time. And one of the things I mentioned to you also, we started with degree programs, but we have also short programs, which is really good because on the one hand side, it's built on our existing system, but it also enables us to provide credits to people who do a short program to do a degree afterwards. It allows us to provide, even we are certified also from the employment agency, so we can even provide government-funded short programs, for example, about helping people to upskill in AI and transition. And again, this is applied, so you not just learn about AI, but it's actually for the AI fellowship, you actually apply that directly on your company, and we help them literally to find not just prototypes but build solutions and change eventually their company, which I think is very important. I mean, we're doing this just since this year, so this is also something new, but very exciting on the other hand side, to even create a much richer ecosystem.
That's amazing. And maybe someone is listening who is interested in that. So definitely go to Tomorrow University to see what type of certificates you can get there, or maybe a study program that might be interesting for you as well. Christian, I saw that you also invest in startups, and you also invest actually in a fund. You just told me that before we started our session here. Now, I would love to know, CTO, co-founder, founder, investor, like what rule would you say is the hardest to learn?
What role is the hardest to learn?
Is one of the hardest actually, or do you think they are all somehow similar?
What is hard? How do you define hard?
I would say something where you have to again learn a lot before you can actually do it. Maybe something where you first struggle a little bit and make some wrong decisions, but then over time you get better, or you have the feeling to get better.
I think it depends a lot on your mindset, what you enjoy, and what you maybe don't enjoy. Entrepreneurship is something where I think you need to have your mindset must be towards struggle. You must enjoy struggle somehow. Telling you here a couple of good things, but this is a struggle. There is a lot of challenges in building a startup. And I think this is something, if you have a mindset which is resilient and that you can accept the things how they are, and always then learn from, as much as it's this kind of combination, learning as much as possible, but then accepting as well, listening to everybody, but then having an opinion at the same time. I think this is like very important. And this is, if you, depending on what, again, your mindset is for some people, it's very hard to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, and for some people, they're just wired for it.
That's true.
And they just love it, because they can talk to customers, interview them, learn, and then build and start to really go into the challenges and then fail. And then they say, shit didn't work out. I could continue going. I like this, So I think this is, it's hard in general. I think it depends on your mindset. The VC game is also, I think, it's not easy to get into the VC game. Becoming somebody on the investment side is not easy. And then making good investment decisions, I think, it's by far not easy. Yeah, it's very...
I also have a lot of friends who work in VC funds, and I always hear about the competition between like the people there, because you always have to find the best deals. But now, if you would think from your investor perspective, and you think about like the audience now, they are listening and they want to get funded, like from that perspective as an investor, what would you say is important for you now before you decide to invest into a founder or like a business?
Yeah, so I get a lot of requests as an angel. Hey,
after the podcast, probably even more.
Probably. This is not where I think this is. And never. So I like this example from Florian Heinemann from Project A. I think he told me the story once that they have this button on the website to submit your pitch deck. And they have received, I think, thousands of pitch decks. Do you know how many they invested into?
Maybe 10, 20?
0.
Oh, wow.
0. And I think this is exactly how this works. If I get a cold email on LinkedIn or email at all, I will not even reply, nor will I even, maybe I talk to the person, but I will not, And for me, it's a people business, the investment. If I do my personal angel investments, if they get an introduction and you tell me, hey, Christian, look at this is an interesting opportunity, and I personally have a relation with you, I will definitely look at them. And then for sure, for me, it's this kind of, do they solve an interesting problem, which I can contribute value to. So I don't know if you would tell me, hey, I'm in the drone business, which I think is a business which currently is very interesting, very clear. I wouldn't invest because I have no experience I can leverage actually to help you actually on that drone business. Yeah, so I would say, hey, that's very interesting. I would be curious, but I would not be the best investors. And I also think it's very important that you get smart money when you're building something. You want to have the right people to support you. Yeah. Or maybe I would invest if they make a very clear pitch why I would be the right fit to them. Yeah. But it's about making this fit between the investor and the founder. Where it should be clear about why you actually are the right person to help. Yeah. I think also don't ask for investment actually in the first place, but ask for, hey, I'm looking for a mentor, ask for advice, for experience, seek the conversation, and then take this conversation further, eventually to a point where you want to have to raise capital. I always say the worst time to raise capital is when you need capital. Yeah. So
unfortunately, so many people do it wrong because they start the raising process when they need the money.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it brings you in a position where you are like desperate, or you look desperate, and in the end, it's also like a psychology game. So the less desperate, the better.
I think I like this. I have also I teach also about funding options actually, and one of the graphs I have there is a little bit like stairs. You see them going up, and this is more or less your valuation. Your valuation doesn't go up like this. It goes up actually in steps. And the steps is always if you have a proof point of something. You have reached, I don't know, this could be a certain threshold for revenue. This could be a certain hiring. This could be a product market fit which you reached, or whatever that is. But it steps up, when your valuation changes. It's something where you have an exciting story to tell. And any step up, that's when this is happening. That's when you could consider fundraising, and not when you need money. I think that's for me and timing matters. Timing matters because obviously I think the later you raise fund, the higher your valuation, the less capital you give away.
That's super helpful. I had like a stupid thing right now. I wanted to ask you about the SpaceX IPO and what you think about that. But with a look at the time right now, we need to speak about something else. So I just want to ask you one last question. Do you have anything that you would still like to share with the audience? Something what you think might be very helpful for them when it comes to fundraising, capital raising, or investing?
Can I double down on SpaceX? I think it's very interesting. SpaceX is so many impressive. I just read the biography from Walter Isaacson on Elon Musk. But I think one of the things which I made often wrong is this topic. Elon Musk has in SpaceX 80% control of the company, which is crazy.
Wow.
This is crazy at this valuation. And I tell you, this makes a huge difference as a founder if you have control or no control anymore of your company. And I think it's never too early to make clear that there is not just every share has not the same voting rights. So if there is one thing which I would give as an advice to founders is the term sheet, the details matter. Not at when you close the money, then you think only money matters. But the reality is if you're successful, the terms matter so much.
Did you decline people because of the terms?
I declined people often, sure. But I think I could have done much better choices about my terms.
Okay.
And for sure, it's also a question of power dynamics. But I highly recommend to think about this case, but I highly recommend to get educated yourself about term sheets. What are the terms? What they really mean? And not just in the moment when you see the money, but actually what they mean in the midterm to long term, because that's when you're actually successful. That's when it matters. And I can tell you a lot of stories of terms which turn out wrong for founders. Because obviously investors they spend more time with good terms and a better understanding, and because they have the pattern. And I think founders are undereducated on the terms.
That's true. Christian, thank you so much for joining this episode. It was really fun to have you here in this studio for the first time. So thank you so much. Also, thank you to you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and see you again in the next one.
Thank you, Niclas. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.